All right. Hello, everybody. I have Jacklyn here with me today. We are going to talk a little bit about climbing and people who are maybe new to climbing or are looking to get into it and, haven't started yet. This is a good episode for you to check out and watch. We'll talk a little bit about climbing technique, maybe some of the lingo and things like that. But before we get started, I always start with an icebreaker question. So I'm going to put Jacklyn on the spot.
Uh-oh.
She's going to get to pick out any card. You could pick it out now. There's 3 questions on there. You only have to answer one of them. You don't have to answer them all. So you can pick one, you're not like trapped
Okay.
to do the one you don't want to do.
I'm scared. There we go. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, sure. So you have, would you ever consider having children with a person you were not in love with? Or have you ever, you're laughing. You already
That's
have
very
children?
personal.
Yeah, well, it's a personal, fun icebreaker question. Have you ever chosen to be honest even though your choice cost, even though the choice cost you money? And then the last question is, do you think IQ tests are true measures of intelligence? If all of those suck, you can always pick another one.
These are kind of strange questions, but I'll answer the second one. Have you ever chosen to be honest even though your choice cost you money? Of course. Honesty is a value that I hold very high. So yeah, returning people's, lost property, whatever. Just giving things back that don't belong to me cost me money. I can't think of like a specific situation right now, but
I can
that's what
say
comes to mind.
this water bottle right here is a recycled water bottle from the cliffs. So that's people who give stuff and all that, some cool things. But this is a recycled water bottle from the cliffs. But all right, so talk to us a little bit about your climbing experience. So like, what got you into climbing? How long have you been climbing? Things like that.
Yeah, my climbing experience. Well, I have been climbing for almost a decade now. So just coming up, I think, on 9 years.
Okay.
I think that was back when climbing first became pretty popular in New York. We do live in the city, so it's not super accessible. But
Yeah.
I started at the OG Brooklyn Boulders, so that's
That's where I
BKB.
started.
That doesn't exist anymore. They
Yes.
got bought out by BBP,
Yes,
They're called
I wouldn't know, but I know
Brooklyn
they got bought
Bouldering
out.
Project. Yeah.
Yes.
So BBP. I think they're slated to open very soon, so that'll add more options for people in the area. Yeah, so how I started was my friend had a friend who worked at BKB, and he's like, oh, come climbing, we'll let you in for free. So
Okay.
of course.
That,
I'm
there's a
like-
lot of that in the climbing world. So the first person that got me into it,
Yeah.
big shout out to my friends Joe and Sam. They were working at BKB, and so we definitely have friends who are aligned somewhere. And they're like, yeah, come by, check it out. I did it years ago, and then kind of fell off. I was doing the martial arts. I do so many things because I'm just I have borderline ADHD with activities. I love to do it all. I don't want to miss out. So, but I did climbing for a little bit. I stopped, got back into it later when the cliffs opened. But I was there, similar kind of thing, getting in for free.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I first joined, I was like, damn, I don't know if I could pay. I know how I could get out of this. I'll teach a class. So I started teaching the class at the cliffs, and that was my way of still getting it for free. It's one of the
Absolutely.
perks as a teacher.
Yes, and climbing is an expensive sport. Not everybody can afford it. So
Right.
even a day pass is like, what now, $40?
Right.
That's crazy to me, crazy.
So get yourself a friend who works in the gym. That's what we're getting at here. You could, send either of us a message, but
Don't tell our managers.
yes, don't tell our managers. But it is known that I'm allowed to bring guests.
Yes,
That's
yes,
actually
you
a
are.
thing in the cliffs. I can have a guest come check it out. They could see the space, and it's actually a really cool perk. I was able to bring my brothers, things like that too.
Yeah, super cool. I mean, I invite all my non-climber friends all the time, and a lot of the times they're like, yeah, that's cool, but then they're intimidated to come try out something new. They don't want to feel embarrassed if they can't do anything on the wall, or if they don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, I think so my background's physical education, and one of the hot topics is physical literacy. And I won't go into a whole big definition on it, but one of the things you talk about is confidence. Having the confidence and the motivation is one of the most important things, even though it's non-physical, right? It's not like, I'm not showing you a jumping jack, but how do we get people to be more confident and be more motivated to get into these things? And yeah, a lot of people do get intimidated. They look at the space. I remember the first day I went climbing. I climbed up to the top. I remember being at the top. They were like, just fall. I was on the auto belay.
Yeah.
Like, just fall back. I was like, are you sure?
Oh,
They're
no,
like,
not
"Just
the
fall."
auto belay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're like, just go. You're good. Like, just let go. And I'm someone who's a bit of, I don't want to say an extremist, but I can do a little more extreme things. And I was at the top, like, nervous as hell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get why it would be intimidating. So a good question to add on is, do you have any recommendations for people who might be intimidated to get into the sport?
Well, they're always welcome to join one of our introductory classes, right? So then that way you're in a group of people who are probably their first time there.
Right.
They don't know what climbing is. They don't know what technique, movement, what the movement is like. And, it's more encouraging when you have someone who is more experienced, an instructor leading you guys, and there's a group that can, feed off of each other and build confidence together, right? Without judgment, in a safe environment.
I love that. The community and being with other beginners is an awesome start. And that's how I met you, was the technique class at the Cliffs. So I was kind of, I teach the climbing conditioning class, so my background is I'm not an expert climber, but I'm a strength coach also, so physical education, strength and conditioning, but I never took a technical class for climbing. And I was like peeking in on yours and hoping I could jump in, and I got to sit in on your, you were nice enough to let me sit in on, it was a 6-week class, am I right?
5-week class.
5 weeks.
Yeah, 10 classes across 5 weeks, same group of people just learning together, developing and growing together.
Right. Yeah. And even as someone who I would say I'm, I don't know, intermediate or something like that, but even that, the class was still great for me. My father used to say for years, he would, being a Brooklyn kid, he was a Brooklyn kid, I'm a Brooklyn kid, we would try things but didn't always do it the smart way. So like, for example, first time he went skiing, he went on the mountain and he says that he was wearing jeans, right? And so
I did the same. I wore jeans
Yeah.
my first time skiing.
so there you go. And and for years he just did that and did that and did that and did that. And someone said to him, like, why don't you take a class? And he's like, I don't need a class, I don't need a class. And he said, it's funny because my father teaches the martial arts. He's like, as a martial art teacher, would you ever recommend someone just like go in the ring and not ever take a class? And he was like, wow, that was good. And he took a skiing, he actually snowboards now. He took a snowboard class.
Wow.
He did all that. So I highly recommend the classes too. And as a phys ed person, I highly recommend the classes. It builds your confidence. So
It does. And to just, even especially for such a technical sport as climbing, if you want to move to the outdoors, which a lot of my students express the interest for, there's a huge boom in, people climbing in the gyms, trying to transition to the outdoors. If you don't have the necessary skills, background, or just a mentor guiding you,
right.
it's very easy to get injured. Those
Right.
are a lot of the injuries and deaths that we see on the rise in the recent years are due to a lot of inexperienced climbers,
Right.
going outdoors, not having someone else check their work, complacent because, they saw something on YouTube and decided that they could do it too. So
There's a beginner listening right now who heard you say the word die, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not going to climb anymore. I just want to address that really quick. I said a quote recently, you can die on your couch or you can die off of it. I said,
Very
so
true.
meaning like you could sit on your couch and you can die from obesity, or you can die on a mountain or whatever. Not saying that we're going to die on the mountain. And when you actually look at statistics, like the amount of deaths versus in one place versus another, like way more people are dying from obesity anyway. So that's not to scare you out of the sport. That's more so to remind you of the importance of technique, I think.
Yeah, so I stress safety first and foremost, and then obviously we want everybody to have a good time, enjoy themselves, and have fun, right? But getting the proper instruction is always a good idea in any area.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are the different types of climbing? When I first started, I was confused. I was like, trad, ropes, like I hear all the words. What are the different types of climbing?
Yeah, so the most common question that people will ask when, they hear, oh, I go rock climbing. They'll say, have you seen that movie, Free Solo? Do you do free climbing?
Right.
Which is a very easy mistake to make because they think free climbing is synonymous with free soloing. Soloing is not the same thing. When you're soloing, you're climbing by yourself. You have no protection.
Right.
You're like Alex Honnold, hoping that make it up to the top without falling, right? So that would be
or you die.
Soloing.
Pretty much.
I mean, if you fall down, yeah, there's probably a very slim chance that you're going to survive. So
right.
Let's start at our gym options. At the gym, we have bouldering, which you can go and do by yourself without a harness, without a partner. All you need is shoes and maybe chalk.
Okay.
Right? So bouldering is on the lower walls, so shorter walls, maybe 15, 20 feet. That would still be considered pretty high, but yeah, I don't know how tall the walls are at
the cliffs.
The bouldering
Not sure.
walls. Not sure, but I know our roped walls are 43 or 45 feet.
Right.
So over 40 feet. You
Okay.
ideally want to be climbing with some sort of protection if the wall is that high, right? So that's roped climbing. So we have two kinds of roped climbing. We have top roping, where the rope is anchored at the top for you. That's the safest option, safer than bouldering, because if you fall off the wall, given that your belayer's doing a good job, you shouldn't be going anywhere. Right. So I always advise people, if it's your first time, you should try top roping.
Right.
Yeah, especially if you're afraid of heights. I know it's scary, but don't look down. If you fall, trust your belayer, trust the rope, trust the system.
Right.
You're perfectly safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we also have lead climbing. So lead climbing is different than top roping. It's a form of roped climbing where the climber is leading up a piece of rope and they have to clip into points of protection on the way up.
I love lead. It's fun.
Yeah, lead is very scary. Yeah, very scary for a lot of people, especially if they're, so I call it learning backwards. When you think you know what you're doing, but you're, doing foolish things because you think you know what you're doing, but you haven't had the proper instruction, which me and my climbing partner fall into that category. So I always tell my students, I'm happy you're taking my class and you're learning forwards and not backwards, right? If you're learning backwards, you're lucky to be here that you didn't make a fatal mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
And then outside, are there different, so you had indoors, there was the three categories there, and then outdoors, are there different categories?
Yeah, so outdoors, you can do all of that, bouldering, top roping, lead climbing. So within lead climbing, we have two subcategories. There's sport leading. Sport leading is when you go out to the crag, there are places that are developed for climbing. The walls will be bolted. So somebody went there and put bolts into the rock so that you are able to clip into that bolt as protection. And in the places where bolting is not allowed or not necessary, so not necessary meaning there are nice cracks that you can use as protection where you would place pieces of gear into, such as cams or stoppers, they're called. That's called traditional climbing. Yeah, and then within traditional climbing, you can also, like way back in the day in Yosemite, people would stick whatever they could into the wall and haul on those things. Like I've seen people sticking books into cracks and yanking on them. I've seen like soda cans, all kinds of stuff. That would be called aid climbing.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a differentiation between aiding, in which the climber would be pulling on the gear to help them out. Today, mostly everybody who climbs would be free climbing. Yeah, so free climbing meaning you're not using the help of the rope or assistance pulling the gear to climb. Those are a lot of the world records that you see today.
And then there was one style of climbing that I did that was a lot of fun. Help me with the name. I'm climbing, but I fall in water. Deep water solo.
Deep water solo, yes.
Yes.
It's fun, but also very scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah, you go based on your risk level. And
Yeah.
I think most people that are listening, you're going to start out in the gym.
Yeah.
You're not going to start out outside anyway.
I mean, you can.
Yeah, you can.
If that's accessible to you, I think that's great.
Right. And yeah, you definitely can. I think New York City even has like a couple boulders that people can climb. I think before, one of the last questions is about any places in New York City. But yeah, I guess you can start outside.
Where'd you go for deep water solo?
It's not a common place, but it was in Jamaica.
Oh.
So there's someone there who is, I think his Instagram or something's Jam Rock Climbing, really cool. But he was like, there's no big deep water solo scene in Jamaica, but he's like, I'm going to be the guy to make it.
He found it, yeah.
He found some spots.
Nice.
And I didn't go anywhere else. So I don't have anywhere to compare it to, but I thought it was amazing and I had a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was the ocean that day?
It was nice. The water was beautiful. The water was crystal clear. There is that moment where you're like starting to get a little higher, and you're getting fatigued, and you're like, all right, if I fall and slap the water now, like the wind might get knocked out of your bid. But I didn't have any bad falls. I fell in nice. It was a great time. Everybody I was with had a great time, and but that's a whole nother avenue for climbing too.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I actually went deep water soloing in Greece.
Yeah.
So Kalinos, which is an island in Greece that's like all adventure sports.
Right.
Like the most well-known place in Europe for sport climbing.
Wow.
They have this super cool cave where you can deep water solo. And the hardest part was just like once you fall in the water, you got to drag your waterlogged body and shoes out of the water, and you weigh 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's exhausting, but it's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an absolute blast when I went. So quick question for you regarding bouldering, and then we'll go into the ropes in the gym. So beginner, one of the things I absolutely love about climbing is you can go at any level.
Yeah.
Right. So I could be sitting next to you. There's a route on the wall that is hard. There's a route on the wall that's easy. And we could both be hanging out. You can go 40 times. I mean, probably not going 40 times. You can go 10 times back to back, whatever, 5, 4, 3. And I could go once and watch you. Like the gym is very, it gives a lot of individual opportunity for individual differences. And we can all hang out in the same space and be able to enjoy it. But so what are the ratings for bouldering? Like if someone's going to do a route for bouldering, and then the ratings for the ropes in the gym?
The grading systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for bouldering, we have a universal grading system called the V scale. So currently it goes from V0 to V17 being the hardest grade that exists today. It's still debatable.
V17 you said?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I thought like 8 was hard, but anyway.
I mean, 8 is hard. 8 is super hard.
Right.
So beginners would start at V0s.
Right.
So when I first started, I had no upper body strength. Yeah, so.
You had to come to my climbing competition.
Didn't exist at
Right.
BKB back then, but we should suggest it to the new management at BBP. Yeah, so V0s is for my beginners. For the roped routes in North America, we use a grading system called the Yosemite decimal system, invented in Yosemite National Park. So that starts from 5.0 being the easiest, up to 5.9 is what the climbers who invented the system thought would be the most difficult grade. But that was like way back when they didn't have proper climbing shoes or other equipment. Now we do. We have a plethora of technology that helps us. So hardest grade So after 5.9, you have 510A, 510B, 510C, 510D, 511A through D, and so on, all the way to, we're at 515s now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's only in North America. We use this grading system. Other parts of the world have different grading systems. There's a UK grading system, there's a French grading system, there's an Australian grading system.
Right.
Yeah, so you could like go online and find conversions for all of those.
So just to give some people a little bit of perspective, I usually climb like a V4 bouldering, and I usually climb like a 5.10. Wait, you just said the
510.
510.
510.
510 on ropes. And I've been doing it probably for 2 years now. And I'm not, I don't go every day. I go maybe once a week, twice a week. So I'm not like a very consistent climber, but just so people have an idea. And so it's okay to be humble and to start in those lower numbers. You're starting in a 0. You don't compare yourself. One of the things I did when I first came into the gym, I saw someone doing like those V8s, whatever. And I'm like,
something crazy, like overhung on a
yeah. And I'm like, I'm strong. I could absolutely not. First off, it's a different type of strength. The finger strength is different.
Yeah.
So, it's a humbling sport. You want to start at the V0 because some people think they could skip. Start at the V0, go nice and slow, pace yourself, and have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point in comparing yourself to other people they probably climbed for 15 years, right? Doing a V8. So you're free to play around with whatever grade looks fun to you. I always encourage people, even if you feel like, oh, I can't climb V5, V6, I say try the move. Just try it. You'll be surprised. Maybe you're able to execute a couple moves on there, and progress can be made.
Yeah. In fitness, we always say progressive overload. So you do want to fail too. Huberman Lab, Andrew Huberman, he has a great podcast also. And on there, he has an episode about motivation. And he says the perfect recipe for motivation, I hope I get the number right, but I think it's 85-15. You're shaking because you know?
I think I've heard that. I've listened to that clip.
I'm pretty sure it's 85-15. So 85% of the time you want to succeed, 15% of the time you want to fail, and that gives the perfect recipe to be motivated to want to do something. So if you notice and obviously there's still going to be individuality. There's no perfect recipe for everybody. But generally speaking, you want to be succeeding more than you're failing, but then you also want to fail. So some people need to be scaled back, but some people need to be told to push themselves. Like, yeah, it's okay to try that one that's a little harder, and it's okay to fail on it. It's okay. You got me on the V6. I got halfway, right? And that's how you end up going to the next, and pushing yourself a little more and more.
Yeah, and this is a arbitrary percentage, but maybe 80% of climbing is falling. You have to fall.
Right.
Your brain doesn't learn if you don't fall, if you don't try, if you're too afraid to get on the wall, afraid of, embarrassing yourself, looking stupid. Everybody falls in climbing.
Yeah.
But that's how we get back up and try something different if that method didn't work.
And that's how your brain learns.
Exactly.
One of the biggest things that I love about climbing, I could go on and on about different stuff, but actually brain health more than anything. It's one of the a lot of people, they go to the gym, fitness, they're doing a lot of linear things that don't require much reacting to your environment.
Yeah.
And when it comes to climbing, when you're on that wall, figuring out the route, doing the puzzle, the mental, physical puzzle, there's tons of brain health that comes along with that physical health too. And, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that also.
Absolutely, yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about maybe as a beginner, what are some technical things that people should know? And I know you had there's different titles for the weeks in your class, like footwork or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe touching on one or two of those little things.
Technique-wise, there's too much for us to cover in this podcast. But if it's your first time at the gym, your first couple times at the gym, I would suggest trying to activate, shoulders and back muscles to help support your climbing. A lot of stronger people that do, gym conditioning regularly, they'll have that upper body strength to do pull-ups on the wall. right? But we want to avoid using our upper body to do pull-ups because that's going to shorten your climbing session, right?
Yeah.
So the goal is to climb efficiently, right? That's what the techniques help us to do, is to climb efficiently. And once you progress to the more advanced levels, there's a lot of fine-tuning that can be done in terms of, footwork, very small tweaks in muscle engagement, finger strength, all
Right.
of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a cool thing that you told me that I related back to judo, kayaking, a lot of different sports that I've done. But the idea of using your body more than your arms, which you're kind of like maybe touching on a little bit there. Like when you're climbing, I notice there's like a lot of rotation and there's a lot of, you said using your back more than the arm itself. And using the body is going to be stronger than using the arms.
So common mistake that I see with beginners is they're so focused on what their hands are doing, what their arms are doing, because that's within your field of vision. They forget that they have a lower half of their body, right? Climbing is a combination of pushing and pulling. We need to be using our legs to drive that movement as well. Push more, then you pull, right? Then you'll tire yourself out less.
So footwork also, I'm sure, is going to be a big part of where, like,
Definitely.
keeping your feet under your body.
It's more in terms of moving your center of gravity over your feet so that you're able to support your weight over your feet rather than supporting your weight on your arms.
And then another big one, I felt like when I was climbing, you or someone might have yelled it at me, like, why is your body so far from the wall? Like, that's a big one too, right? Like your body should be, or your hips should be driven into the wall, you think?
Yes, that's one of the big tips that will be given to beginners is hips into the wall, right? So it's the same idea. That's a cue for you to bring your center of mass over your feet, right? If your body is closer to the wall, then you don't have the weight of your torso pulling you off the wall.
And are there any terminology pieces that maybe people can look up more about? So I'm thinking like words like when I'm climbing, sometimes people who are experienced in the gym will give me feedback while I'm up there. And they'll say things and I'm like, I don't know. I remember when I first started, I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but like a heel hook, right? So I'm using my heel to hook onto the, whatever hold it is. Are there any other maybe ones that come to mind, like terminology-wise?
Terminology-wise, probably learn what the different types of climbing holds look like.
Right.
So when somebody is shouting beta at you, then you know what they're talking about.
What is beta for a new person?
Beta is the way to climb something.
Okay.
Right? For most people, they want to be able to figure it out on their own. And then for some people that are maybe more experienced or have already done that route or problem, they want to shout beta at somebody to help them out. And maybe it's unwanted. So
right.
Yeah, don't beta spray.
Yeah. The different types of holds, what are they? Can you speak to those?
Well, I wish I had a diagram over here to show
I know.
everybody.
Just maybe a couple of like.
Sure. Beginner-friendly holds are called jugs or buckets, right? So nice, friendly, where you can wrap your whole hand around the hold. That would be called a very juggy hold, right? Some people are like, I threw my hand into a nice deep bucket.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you have smaller type holds called crimps, where you can only fit maybe 1 or 2 finger pads on there, right? That would be more
my worst enemy,
tendon.
The crimps.
You would need stronger finger tendons in order to use those types of holds. We got pinches, self-explanatory pinching. We got pockets where you're sticking your fingers into. So pockets can vary from very shallow or nice deep pocket, right? A small pocket where you could only fit 1 finger into would be a mono pocket versus a larger pocket where I can fit all 4 fingers into. It's be like a super deep juggy pocket. And then my nemesis is a sloper, right? So a sloper where your hand is open like you're holding a basketball.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's different types of technique to use all those types of holds.
Yeah. And then I've learned too over time you can use, like I said before, the heel hook, but then there's the knee bar. So even we're talking about grips, but then there's ways that you can grip the wall, I guess, with other parts of your body too.
Yeah, so there's different footwork techniques that you can use, which for beginners, don't want to be inundated with all of those terminology.
Right.
So for beginners, I would just suggest remember to use your toe to climb, and to watch how you place your foot on the hold. If you use your toe, you get a higher range of motion, right? You're able to twist side to side on that toe. You're able to stand up on that toe to reach farther up. Yeah, versus using the ball of your foot or the middle of your foot, or just blindly hoping to slap your foot onto something because you're not looking at the hold.
And regarding grip strength, because I feel like it's a big part of climbing, is there any way that people can, or exercise or things that people can do to improve their grip strength, you think?
Well, you're the strength
I know, I'm the
conditioning
strength
guy,
guy.
right?
So
Yeah.
I have to ask all these questions. You know, sometimes it's actually good to hear, though, your perspective of being, like, as a strength coach, you know, I have my perspective. It's always good to hear more perspectives.
Yeah.
So you're still kind of like, you know, the expert in climbing. So
I wouldn't call myself an expert in
Well,
climbing. I'm the more experienced climber.
right,
Yeah,
right.
more experienced climber, but you know, anybody can climb. Anybody can climb. When I first started, like I said, I didn't have any upper body strength. Like I
Right.
couldn't do a pull-up until last year. I couldn't do one single pull-up.
Wow.
But I can climb 512s.
Wow.
So
What does that tell you?
there's technique,
Right.
right? So there are people that will overcompensate with brute strength. And you know that they're overcompensating with brute strength because they don't know how to place their feet on the holds, right? They don't know how to twist their body. They have very strong arms, very strong shoulders, very strong back, and they're just doing pull-ups on the routes. And at a certain point, climbs or grades that require more technique, they're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm guilty of, which is why I came down to watch your class. You know, I'm going to use what I got, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, I didn't have that much technique. So sometimes I'd kind of muscle past things or like skip a hold and I was like, yeah, it's not efficient. Like it's definitely worth learning that technique and being more technical and efficient and smooth, you know,
Yeah.
on the wall.
Yeah. In terms of finger strength, we have hangboards. You can do hangboard training, but a lot of times students will tell me, it's boring. I don't want to be on the hangboard, right? So that's the other half of the conditioning where you're like, I'm not having fun.
Right, right.
You want to be climbing. So if you want to strengthen your finger tendons, grip strength, just climb more, right? Get that volume in.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, I don't know a lot of. I actually had, you know, another climber on the podcast before, and he said, I don't even really do any, he's like, I just climb. Not saying that that's what people should do, but the idea of climbing itself is going to build the strength. And it's going to build it in a fun, exciting way. Like if you're not going to compete, it's also not that serious. Like you can build strength on the climbs by climbing.
Especially for beginners. Beginners the progress happens so fast. The curve for beginners is so steep. Once you start going regularly, you will progress from V0 to V4 in no time, right? Depending on your prior physical strength. If you are very aware of how to use your body, right? A lot of people who are already involved in different movement, yoga, pole dancing, I see they could fly up the wall.
Yeah. So are there any common mistakes that people do when they first start that maybe come to mind that people should know about or look to avoid, or, you know, look out for this or that as a beginner?
Yeah, so I tell all my beginners, you want to climb like a sloth, an elegant sloth, and not a T-Rex. Yeah, so
What do you mean by that?
T-Rex as in I'm doing pull-ups, I'm like over gripping using
Yes.
all the energy in my arms and forearms
Right.
to stay on the wall. Yeah, and another important thing is to breathe.
Mm.
Breathe. Yeah, so I'll have students holding their breath,
Mm.
just holding their breath, trying to make it through a boulder problem.
Mm.
And we all know you need to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say a sloth too,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm thinking slowing it down and almost being a little more elongated too, maybe? 'Cause I
Exactly.
think T-Rex is tight.
Right.
Right.
So you want to try to keep the arms long and relaxed if possible. You'll hear people giving this advice to beginners, but they oftentimes fail to tell beginners, well, what muscles should they be activating, right? So I always tell my students, activate your shoulders and your back in your straight arm drills, right? So we'll do drills where I tell them, climb with straight arms. We're deleting your elbows. You have no elbows now. How are you going to move, right? Then you can rely on the other parts of your body, right? I'm going to use my legs. I'm going to bring my legs up high so I can bend my knees and then push up using my legs.
So I actually had a quick question about the straight arm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend completely straight? Is there a slight bend in the arm, or is it completely straight? And is there, or I don't know, is that a big question? Because before you even answer, I'll just say, so sometimes there's things I think you do in climbing, and then there's sometimes things that you might do differently in training. So like I feel like, and you can let me know if I'm right, that having a completely straight arm is going to be better, right? Anytime you have that slight bend, you're now using these extra muscles that you don't want to use. But I'm also then considering the health of the joint. So like I wonder if, while clearly if I could just completely hang with a completely straight arm, it would be better for me as far as being able to be relaxed more. But I just wonder if that impacts the health of the joint, and if maybe sometimes people should have a little bend, or like it's not that serious because you're not like an experienced climber climbing all the time anyway. I'm just curious.
My opinion is not medical. I don't have a medical background.
Right.
I'm not a physical therapist. However, I am a certified yoga teacher, and in yoga, we teach people to, if they have hyperextension of the joints, to activate that muscle to protect the joint, right? I'm guessing that's part of your question.
Yeah.
For climbing, it's a lot of, I guess we're stretching out the muscles more because we're hanging off of our hands.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like a concrete answer to that question.
And you don't have to. That was just something I thought about, and it just popped in my head right now.
Yeah.
And I didn't even put that in the question.
Yeah.
Because usually when, like here, I'll give you one more example. So when you're doing a crimp, sometimes your fingertips at the end will hyperextend a bit.
It is a hyperextension,
and which is good for being able to climb higher. But when I'm training, I tell people, try not to do hyperextension too much. You know, practice your more like an L.
Open hand grip,
hand grip. So while hyperextension, you'll be able to lift more. It's almost like power lifters. Like if you arch your back massively, you're going to lift more. But then there's also, if you're doing it too much, you want to just consider the joint health too.
Right. So in general, you want muscles to support the joint.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I tell people not to hang off of their shoulders.
Right.
Climbers, that's a very common injury for climbers, are shoulder rotator cuff injuries. So when we're doing our straight arm drills, I cue my students to activate the shoulder muscles. Right. We want to activate the back muscles to help support them. Also, this conditions climbers for when they start climbing steeper walls. So steeper walls, when they're maybe like upside down, we need to have that strength in the shoulders and back.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that hit the bulk of my questions, but as we're wrapping it up, I'll ask two things. One, if there's anything that you or we'll start with that. Is there anything that maybe I missed that you want to share? Not that you have to, but just to open the floor.
Climbing is fun. everybody should try it, right? It's a good way to move your body. I hear people telling me that they have a fear of heights, and maybe that's why they don't want to get into climbing. But a lot of my friends who I've taken them to the gym who have a fear of heights, and they, even if they don't get into the sport, they see what's so addictive about it and what's so fun about it.
Right.
And even with a fear of heights, I've taught students that tell me, I don't want to go too high because I'm scared. But part of that is scared of what, right? Scared of falling. So just learning how to fall properly, which is a skill that you need to have if you are going to be bouldering. You need to learn how to fall properly so that you don't injure yourself. Yeah. So another very common injury for climbers is a sprained ankle. I myself have my ankle injury, right? All of my friends have had their ankle injuries from bouldering. So this, I mean, maybe could be prevented if people just learn how to fall properly and take those proper safety measures.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, climbing myself. Like I said, I mentioned some things throughout the podcast, but the piece about brain health, you're maintaining your physical health, but there's a big piece about brain health there. There's the big piece about, individuality. And to touch on your point a bit, like when I first started, I was afraid at the top.
Yeah.
So the more that you are in an environment now, I could be up, I could hold a conversation, I could hang out and eat lunch up there. I can, when you look at something and it seems like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do that? Then all of a sudden you do it twice, and you do it 3 times, and you do it 4 times. Before you know it, the environment's comfortable and you're in it.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite quotes by Picasso. It's the only way that I do things I can't do is to do them. Right. And this is a motto that I take to heart, and that's what drives me and my life. Yeah, is to try new things. Yeah. Don't let your ego tell you, oh, you're gonna look stupid, or don't embarrass yourself. Yeah.
And then like you said, one of the biggest things I love of the climbing about climbing is the community. And the piece that you said about joining with others who are also beginners. But like the climbing community is great. Even people who are advanced, like everybody's very welcoming. Everybody's very, like there's really not, I don't feel it, at least. I don't feel ego on the climbing floor. Maybe, I don't know your thoughts on that, but when I'm there, I feel no ego. Like there's nobody next to me, like really like trying to like outshine me. If anything, they're like, helping,
Yeah, so that's one of the beautiful things about climbing community is you can go bouldering by yourself and you'll find other people working on the same problem that you are, and you'll just have a natural camaraderie. Like we're trying to tackle this problem. It's not about competition. We'll be cheering each other on, giving each other useful tips. And I think that's really wonderful.
So are there any places in the New York City area, this is one of the final questions I had, where people could do outdoor climbing?
New York City area, so in our immediate vicinity, we have a couple rocks in Central Park that I know people like to climb. Personally, I've been to one called Rat Rock or Umpire Rock. Just a neat little boulder problem if, you are just yearning to touch some real rock and not plastic in the gym. Otherwise, other good places. So we have a world-class climbing destination. Most people have probably heard of it. Just outside of New Paltz, called the Gunks, short for the Shawangunk Ridge. That's where I do most of my local climbing. Yeah, but there's so much rock climbing everywhere. There's so much development. But yeah, so on that note, just want to remind people that the outdoors is a privilege. So we need to continue to take care of these places so that future generations are able to enjoy them as we do.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And then I'll ask this one too, any big places, whether it's in the country or in the world. And the reason I say that is some people thrive off of challenges or like big picture dreams. Like, if I was like, oh, you know what? One day I want to climb Yosemite. Like, I know I'm not there now, but maybe I hang up that picture in my room and that's a place I want to build to.
You can go to Yosemite tomorrow. There's so much climbing out there. It's not just, the big wall climbing. They have single pitch and short multi-pitch there too.
Wow, that's actually good for me to know. I always think like it's like...
No, you don't have to be Alex Honnold to climb over there.
And yeah, I mean, one of the big things about climbing that's cool too is you could plan a trip out of it. So when you're traveling places and you're going to different places in the world, it's a great way to kind of enhance your life. And we talked about the brain benefits and things like that, but you talk about the benefits of just being in the great outdoors. And that's a whole nother conversation there.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about going on vacation is like discovering new climbing areas. So I will always plan my vacations around, I can climb here and then maybe I'll visit a city nearby. Right. So it's a balance of nature as well as urban.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to thank you for being on the episode today. I'm super excited because we got this really cool setup here and I've never had this setup before.
Yeah, it's legit.
It's legit, the headphones and all. I feel good about it. But thank you for being on. Thank you for your expertise. Well, people should definitely check out your class at the Cliffs. And thank you for today.
Thank you. That was fun. No, we fist bump.
Oh, fist bump. Yeah. Or do you like climb?
What? What is
like a
what
climb
is,
pound
what
or
is
something?
that?
Like a crimp pound?
Oh gosh.
I don't know. But fist bump.
All
that
right.
Sounds cool. Woo.